comments, and Peter did too. So appreciate that very much. Does anybody have anything to add from what I responded from this morning? Like, I'll take a crack at talking about best practices, and there were other few comments too. I know that something was cut off on the questionnaire. A couple of last points were cut off down the bottom of page 6. I'm going from memory here. But if we can fix those last few items, I think we're looking pretty good.
Hey, Bob, it's Peter.
Yeah.
I just have one issue, and it's one that I was kind of harping
Sure.
on via email, and that is reordering, like we discussed last week, the recommendations. And I just didn't feel I had the skill set to change what we agreed upon to make the changes.
Yeah, no. So thank you, Peter, for that. Hey, Bob R. Did you change the order of those items? Didn't you change them when we were on our last call?
No.
I thought you had said that.
I might have. I don't remember.
No, the printout doesn't show them change. And I go back to Bob's comment on Monday in the edits, and we agreed to move one to the bottom. And you've got my email. Both Leo and Bob got it as to what the order was agreed upon.
Yeah.
And number 4 was going to go to the bottom.
Right.
Okay. So if someone can do that, I'm absolutely fine with all of that. Just if you can just cut and paste it, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah, I kept losing the pagination when I tried to do it. I kept losing the numbers, and I figured I was doing something wrong.
Okay, you've got. I'll do it. I'll just do it now. Your email has.
Thanks.
Sure.
Good, thank you. I appreciate that, because I thought that was all taken care of. But then I know, Peter, you had some questions on that, and I didn't want to just go in and make the changes without talking about it. I don't want to make a change, out of the ordinary, so to speak. So because I'm agnostic on where they lie. I just think those recommendations are recommendations. I'm okay with whatever priority you guys are good with. Really, so I'm okay with that. But I'm happy to talk about the best practices, and let's see what else. What else would we talk about this morning? Seems like a long time ago now that I was out all day.
General question while we're on the topic of recommendations like that. And this is more well. I had to miss the past few meetings, my family situation, but
Hey, Lauren, I can't hear. Can you speak up, Lauren? I can't really hear you that well.
Sure. Are you able to hear me better now?
No.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
So I obviously had to miss the last few meetings, but I thought we had been discussing, presenting these more as possible solutions rather than making recommendations. On what did that change in the past meetings that I missed? Or that's not reflected in. And so I'm not really sure, but I personally don't endorse a town manager, and this document sort of lists that and recommends that. So I'm just wondering, did we take a vote to recommend that, or what?
Well, I think it's just, I don't think we recommended it. I think, well, we recommend it, but we just say it be considered by the next committee is what we're really saying, I think.
Yeah,
Right.
But I kind of agree with Lauren, Peter, though, on that, because it's under the recommendations and
Change recommendations to considerations. It's over.
Yeah, that's right. That's fine.
yeah, and I don't know that. I voiced opposition to the concept of a town manager, and I came in 2/3 of the way as well to this whole process. So I don't have all the back information, but that's my concern, is that there's a recommendation of establishing a town administrator or town manager. I'm with kind of locks up with Lauren on that one.
Okay, so we've been working all this time, all these weeks and months on this stuff, and we're about ready to finish the document. And so would you rather have us recharacterize them as solutions rather than recommendations? Because here's what it comes down to. We found these issues to be wanting, and we found these items to satisfy those solutions. So you might not endorse a town manager, or you might not endorse another form of government, but those are solutions to what we found to be the problems. So I don't know how else, first of all, I don't know how else you can come at this late date and voice this, because we've been talking about this for months now. So I find that honestly a little bit disingenuous.
I could say, Bob, I will say that I've voiced opposition to the concept of a town manager in the past, because I think the notion is and it separates the electorate, the voters. It kind of dilutes their vote, and it removes their authority over the town government by having a permanent position. I have voiced that in the past. I missed the last meeting. I apologize. I don't know. I haven't had a chance to catch up. I've been drinking from a fire hose because of playing catch up after spending a week without power. But just seeing it all of a sudden, in the recommendations component, it was just, I don't know that, I don't remember hearing, I know there's been chatter about it, but not so far as to be a recommendation. So that's just my thoughts. And again, I was not part of this for the first 2/3 of this. The committee.
So this document has been out. This document has been out for at least 6 weeks.
Yep.
Okay. And
But to
I'm losing Lauren. I'm not able to hear Lauren.
Also voiced,
I can't hear her either.
can you hear me now?
I can't hear her either.
Can you hear me now?
kind of,
I have also voiced
that's good.
I'm not sure how many times I voiced that, but I certainly apologize for missing the last meeting. But the last meetings that I attended, it was discussed multiple times that we were going to make a specific recommendation. It was going to identify possible ways of solving the problems. And actually,
Yeah, I can't hear anything she's saying.
I think, Bob, the background noise, you keep illuminating as the primary speaker when Lauren's talking.
Okay, let me.
If you go on mute, that might help.
Hey,
Okay,
Lauren,
I muted me.
able to hear me better now, Bob?
Yes.
So I have voiced concern about a town manager in the past, and I certainly apologize for missing the past few meetings, but I attended every single meeting up until I had my baby. So respectfully, I do not appreciate the concern I'm raising as being disingenuous. The most recent meetings that I attended, there was discussion over the course of this committee. There's been multiple times it's been discussed that there very well might not end up being a recommendation to have a town manager, and that it might just be presented as, here are some issues in the town, and here are some possible ways that a future commission might consider going about, approaching solving those problems. But I to my knowledge, and certainly, it hasn't been reflected in the minutes. I mean, there hasn't been a vote saying that, we all are on board with recommending a town manager. So I'm respectfully, I am not being disingenuous, and I don't appreciate that. After
So this document has been out, Lauren, for 6 weeks, and it's been sent to you, and it's been out there in the domain for all of us to comment on. And just because you missed a meeting or a few, doesn't mean you couldn't go into the document and have read this. So, you know, I'm sorry if you think disingenuous might be the wrong, I don't know, description, but, you know, to come in now that the week before we're going to present this to the Board of Selectmen and raise opposition to something, you know, I just don't find that, you know, I just find that off-putting. And we can take a vote on this document, and you can vote no, and that's fine. And Bob, you can too, if you're not comfortable with the recommendations that we're making based on the issues that we found out to be wanting, and that's okay. That's okay. It doesn't have to be unanimous. A lot of work has gone into this, a lot of work, a lot of hours of editing, a lot of hours of interviews, and I tell you, I put a ton of time into this, and I just find it very strange at the last second the opposition is raised. So,
Bob, you know,
I think, sorry, but I think that these points can be reconciled pretty easily. The items 1 through 9 are not definitive in any way. There's things in 1 through 9, frankly, that I don't necessarily agree with, but as we've talked before, it's not our place. It'll be the commission's place to deal with it. But for example, seriously, change recommendations to potential solutions, to some other word.
absolutely.
Soften the language from recommends to has identified potential solutions as, and then I think that takes away the potential definitive view that Lauren and Bob are raising, because I don't see this as definitive at all, and I don't think any of us do. And it softens that language, and then it is exactly what we talked about. And frankly, it is now. It's just the semantics might not be in the way that is less direct or less definitive as we talked before. So, I mean,
I agree with
I think these are easy concerns to address just by changing some of the language.
And Bob, that's
that
what I put in my email this morning. All I said was, you know, there's a difference between recommendations and possible solutions. So that's the issue I was raising. I wasn't saying that I don't agree with the entirety of the document.
I agree with Leo, because we have not we haven't had a chance to discuss any of these points in any level of detail as a group. These are the things that just kind of came out of all the different conversations. So we never had a chance to sit down and say, let's beat up on one of the points. Is replacing the form of government even a viable solution? We just kind of said it's a possibility. So they're not recommendations. I don't agree with all of them either. I'm not sure about a town manager. I think there's a need to explore what the cost of town manager would be, how they would be managed, who's going to direct them. Is there a connection to the voter? That all has to be explored, but there could be a big impact by bringing one in-house and having them do that. And a 4-year term is completely, I'm not sure about that either. I think that might be too long. You might chase everyone who might want to serve away. And even within some of these, I threw in some ideas there about extending the term of the first selectman so they can get, or extending the number of first selectmen so they can get into deeper detail on the committees they're responsible for. None of that's been vetted out. So we just never got to the point of debate.
Well, and
So
I
I
think
think-
what we were saying is that wasn't our charge. It's to raise the issues. And so why don't we call it considerations, and why don't we take what is now number 6 and just say, consider a town manager? As opposed to establish, which is a very forceful word, we can just say consider. And then as Bob says, we can vote on it.
I tend to agree with you, Peter. Actually, I think Leo brought up the best point, sort of like an anchor point, is that change from recommendations to considerations. But I also, I have to be careful because I was out for the first 2/3 of the committee. So I'm trying to I've stepped back just a little bit because you guys put a lot of work into this. So I don't know exactly everything that transpired in the beginning. But because I've been a big advocate for the 4-year term for the first select person is perhaps a wiser move as a step towards perhaps a town manager down the road. But I think that I don't like us to make a recommendation of something that, I personally am against it because I think it removes the voice of the people. And I'm never about that. And so that I personally would vote no on that recommendation or even consideration, but that's just on that point. There's other points in there that are, I think, well done and well thought out. So.
I made some changes to that paragraph. I'm not sure of how long it takes them to go live.
Kind of seeing it as you're working, I think.
They're all instantaneous, yeah.
Yeah, I'm seeing it.
All right.
I'm not sure what's going on with Bob's audio. I can't get him unmuted. Oh, there he is.
Okay, so if we can change, thank you, Lauren. I couldn't get back to you. If we can change recommendations to considerations, does that solve the problem with Lauren and Bob?
All caps. Real-time editing is kind of fun.
Yeah.
Trying to follow it.
Who would have thought Google figured out all this stuff? Wow.
Awesome.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
Yep.
we already made
If
those
we,
changes.
okay, so we change recommendations to considerations?
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Is that what we did?
Yes.
Personally, my vote would be it still sounds strong for where I think we are and what, where we should be.
How would you rephrase it?
Then edit it.
I guess I'm caught, and I'm in a minority vote on this because I just don't like. I'm not a fan of the concept of a town manager at all. because-
Understood, but
Okay,
our
so-
vote doesn't, but I think at the point now, we shouldn't be representing ourselves as representative of the town. I don't agree with some of these either, but they're viable solutions to the problems which have been discussed.
Yes,
Do I want to
Absolutely.
spend $200,000
Absolutely.
a year more on a town manager? Probably not. But it's not my job to figure out if that's a good idea or not. I think it's our job to source the ideas and let some other poor committee figure out what we can and can't do or should and shouldn't do.
I do think you could
But I
change the
think,
word.
but that's why I think it's a good idea, changing recommendations to something else.
I mean,
And maybe the word, instead of establish, we should just say consider a town manager.
In the actual considerations, yeah, I mean, maybe we should soften all that, but at some point now it's just being,
because I think, in some of our discussions, and I've brought this up, that I think the problem that is happening is the quick turnover, the lack of continuity of leadership, and the constant having to be either getting up to speed and then moving on to campaigning within a 2-year period. And so I think within the town manager or town administrator position, item number 3 on the now considerations would be better suited to also say, and also while doing that, also consider moving the first select person, that the ultimate, leadership role, into a 4-year term, as opposed to the current 2-year term, as also a component, in that number 3, because you're changing the role of the leadership at the top. And then down below it says, well, other, item number 7 now, extend all selected positions to a staggered 4-year terms. I would like to see under item number 3, consider a town manager and or a 4-year term for first select person. That's the way it's, because it just seems leading that it says that we have a firm position. If you guys overrule me, it is what it is, but I don't like the strength of that point. It seemed, and it kind of, number 7 kind of loses its impact as a possibility for the leadership. So that's sort of my position.
I agree with Bob.
So you'd want to say,
Well, why don't you
So-
edit it? I'm
I-
sorry.
I-
I mean, like Bob and I have been doing this real time. You can do it real time too, just as easy as we can.
Right. Well,
The language is there. All the general stuff is there. Just edit it and we can talk about it. Well, there is no next time, I guess. Or is there a next time? Is there a next one? A meeting next Monday?
There isn't. No, we're meeting with the Board of Selectmen next Monday.
so,
This document needs to go to Lauren by Thursday.
Well, can still do the editing, and we
Sure.
can
Sure.
have another call or just
Bob and
comment.
Lauren, your idea is that it would be an either or. Either you establish a town manager or town administrator position, or you extend the first selectman term 4 years.
See, I don't agree with that. I think those are two separate issues.
That's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
sorry.
You could still have a town manager. You could still have a town manager and a 4-year term for your select people. They're not mutually exclusive.
That's why I say that the 4-year term is for the first select person.
Well, let's just add the 4-year term as another bullet point then, separate it from the town manager.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Make that number 4.
So
hit
make,
the-
so what I've highlighted, can you guys see what I've highlighted? I don't know who can see it.
Yeah.
Move that to become, so make it a standalone point.
Correct.
Yeah, just put the cursor in front of it. Oh, and just hit return.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't type goodly English apparently.
Your English good enough.
Let's see, now I gotta get,
I think that's fine, because I think they are mutually exclusive and now you've excluded them. They're separate.
Good.
Yeah, so it's what became cumbersome is that a number of the solutions and considerations we had help solve sometimes more than one problem. So that's why we kind of disconnected it. But we were going to consider keeping that index, that matrix in the index.
Yeah, that matrix is really helpful and that's got to be in there, I think. That's probably the best work of this committee.
Agreed.
And in particular, Bob Reinhardt and Leo.
Alright.
What else are we missing from Leo's email of last night?
So just before we leave this, I just want to make sure if we're going to keep that, and I think it's a good idea to put that matrix in as an appendix, we need to put the specific extension of the first select person's term to 4 years in as a solution to a couple of the problems, which would be the continuity, and I forget what the other problems were. Probably just continuity. That is a viable alternative to a town manager. Be interesting dynamics to have a 4-year first select person and a 2-year board of select people.
Yeah.
And if they're elected in staggered terms or something like that, that could be very interesting.
You know, I think what's trying to be improved or enhanced is the continuity of leadership when you have oversight over various departments, which the first select person does, and sort of they impart the opinion of the board of select people. So they have a lot of input, but at the end of the day, the elected official who is in charge, you know, the first select person who is elected by the people, as opposed to appointed by whoever is the leading party at the time of their appointment, the people have the say, and then they have oversight over the respective departments, you know, your permanent positions, your police chief, superintendent of schools, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's paramount that you have some sort of experience and leadership that is still serves at the pleasure of the vote of the people.
That makes sense.
Yeah, but our first selectman has nothing to do with the chief of police or the superintendent.
Well,
So the superintendent is selected by the Board of Education, and the chief of police is selected by the police commissioners.
right, but
So
they
the
still
board-
they work with the first select person in the day-to-day operations of the town, do they not?
They do, but it's almost like, you know, if it's in the within the daily operations, but they don't report to each other, there's nothing that, as far as I'm concerned, or as far as I know, the board, the first selectman has pretty much no say over the Board of Ed or the police commissioners. I find that I find that hard to believe when I learn that, because if you come to think about it, the first select person has very little power in the town of Madison.
I think that probably would be helped if they had a 4-year term, because by the time they figure out what they're doing in the office, it's tough. Honestly, it's tough to gain any respect in any leadership position with only 2 years under a year under your belt, if you will. But we've had this discussion before.
Right. So not to belabor that point, you make a great argument for having a town manager, because the town manager becomes imbued with all of those necessary powers and understandings and experience, like a police commissioner or like a chief of police and its superintendent. They're very similar positions. So a lot of people rail against talking about a town manager, when a town manager really is a much more efficient system than we have now.
I think that,
but not going to belabor that.
Well, you know, my concern, Bob, is that you're removing the vote of the people, and that
you're not. You're not.
You're dealing with a contract. You're dealing with a contract as opposed to a vote, and I just I'm uncomfortable.
But the Board of Selectmen, that's fine. It's okay. You don't have to agree. The Board of Selectmen hire that town manager. That town manager comes under a contract, 3 to 4 year contract, whatever's negotiated. He's hired by the people who've elected the Board of Selectmen. It's the same thing with the Board of Education. You elect the Board of Education. They hire the chief of police, the superintendent. The police commissioners are assigned and selected by the Board of Selectmen, who are elected by the electorate, who then pick the superintendent. It's the exact same concept. I just don't understand how the inefficiencies of our present government can't be fixed by a town manager. I
Well,
don't
we have
understand
to
the
decide that.
opposition to that. And that's okay. That's okay. You can have, there's no problem with having other diverse opinions, but I just think that the way it's being viewed is just not completely been vetted out with those opinions. So, but I'm done trying to do that. So.
Well, Bob, I mean, I respect that, but again, I've brought this up in the past, and my opposition to the town manager for those very reasons.
Sure.
I think they need
Absolutely.
the leader of the town, being the first select person, or a town manager, should be beholden to the voter. And I think by going to a town manager, you're diluting that, and you're going to muddy the waters. And I think you're going to move towards less involvement by people because they don't feel like they have a say. They won't understand the how that process works. I just believe our government should be run by somebody who's elected and not appointed. In that case, I mean, again,
Yeah, no,
I'm trying to beat a dead
That's
horse,
absolutely fine.
and I don't mean to
No.
wear you down with the issue. That's kind of like my position. I have voiced it before, so certainly not disingenuous.
Yeah, no.
I just thought
No.
it was pretty
No.
strong as a recommendation. So, and that's my
Yeah.
piece. So.
Bob, you make good points. I think this is probably a better way to phrase what we've come up with, their considerations or what we think could work, but it's not up to us to decide which ones are the ones that should be implemented.
That's right. That's up for the
Yeah.
Charter Review Commission.
It's probably not even them. I think they're going to come up with, they're going to have the same challenges, then you're going to have 5 or 6 or 10 people making the same debate, and it's not their choice.
Right.
They're gonna come up with
It's got to go to
and you go in front of
It's
the
going to
people.
go to a referendum, and it's going to be the people voting on it anyway.
So regardless of what
Sure.
we think, everyone else is going to choose, and
Yep.
then problem solved. So considerations. Makes sense.
Sure.
So one of the things too, I mean, this is like all just softening language, but it obviously is the commission that's going to have to do its work and decide whatever it wants to work on, address, not address, and present eventually to the voters. And it could be one, all, or none, right, of any of these considerations. So do we want to put language in there that states that too? I mean, that to me is obvious, but it further dials back the language that's in this section of the document. But I don't know what you guys think.
I'm sorry, Leo, say that again. I apologize.
So the commission, right? So we have all these considerations. There's 10 categories of considerations that have multiple pieces within them. And we have a matrix too that has identified problems and potential approaches to attempt to solve those problems. Again, these are all considerations. That's what the whole discussion has been about tonight. And obviously, the language that we've been drafting on the fly here is just taking away the strength of the word or the semantic recommendation and moving it to a consideration. But the commission could take our document and not use it. They could follow all of it, or they could follow bits of it do you think that in the preamble to this section, that it's worth referencing that to further dial back the definitiveness of this section? I mean, I think that it is generally understood that the commission will do whatever the commission wants to do, but if it helps us as a group feel more comfortable that this is considerations and then the commission will make its decisions, then I'm fine adding some language like that too. But
Leo,
what are your thoughts?
can I ask a question? In that section under considerations, you use the word commission. Is that term introduced elsewhere?
Yes.
Way at the start? Because it's a
Here.
defined term somewhere. There it is. Got it. Thank you. You're a lawyer. I knew you didn't miss that.
And I like algebra, so it's a whole lot easier than writing these long words all the time.
I don't know. It seems to me it's fine the way it is.
Okay. So Bob and Lauren, I may have missed parts, but again, I tried to call back the language a little bit within each one of these introductions. So, you know, you may want to take a walk through again to make certain I haven't missed something, but hopefully this starts to further hit home that these are just a grouping of potential solutions or grouping of potential considerations, and they're by no means definitive or us as a group endorsing any individual or collective consideration, formerly recommendations.
Consideration. I like the way it's worded better now, because ultimately I think the commission would be the ones who are making recommendations to the people in the form of a referendum to vote on.
Mhm.
I think we're sort of taking a hard look at the issues at hand, what's working, what's not working, and sending up our, findings for consideration to the commission, who would then certainly have a stronger position, if you will, more they have more juice, if you will, by way of sending something up to referendum. I'm not sure about the process of going, how something becomes a referendum item, who has the final say on that. I'm not sure, to be quite honest with you, how that works. But I think that they are the ones who would make the recommendation to the people as to what we think should happen, because I think that would really be their role.
No, Bob and Lauren, I think this is better actually this way, using it as considerations and phrasing it that way. It's more about what we're trying to do. It's not saying do this, we're saying think about it.
Yeah, I mean, they'll go back, Lauren, to 2015, like they did then. The Charter Review Commission put something out, it goes to the voter, and in that case, it got shot down, but that's what will happen, right?
Yeah, I mean, technically it's the Board of Selectmen that sends it to the voters. So the charter revision gives it to the board. The Board of Selectmen then makes changes and
Okay.
sends it back to the Charter Commission to give them their final draft. And then the Board of Selectmen sends it to the voters.
Well, should we set a time limit on closure for this so that we can all say we're on board or not? Or are we good now or what? I mean, I just think everybody ought to be in a position to say yay or nay sooner rather than later, because Lauren's got a lot of work to do.
Absolutely agree. I mean, if you want, we could even take a vote on it, tomorrow or tonight. You don't have to agree with all the solutions. I just don't feel the need. We all have to be unanimous in this, especially if you're, coming in late or, you've not been around that often. So that's fine.
think the heart of the matter is really just the final part, what we're saying should be considered as possible solutions. Any of those jump out at anyone that we should discuss some more? 'Cause this actually has been pretty good.
No, I agree with you, Bob. I'm very happy with how we've concluded this, you know, especially over the last few days. I think it's come together nicely, and you know, whether we call them recommendations or solutions, I think that's all semantics, to be honest with you. You can call whatever you want. These are the things that we found to be wanting, and this is how you can possibly fix it. And that's what potentially part of our charge was to do. So I'm ambivalent on whatever you call it. So pending that, Lauren sent out the link for next Monday evening. Last Monday, we talked about, Peter made a recommendation. Made a recommendation that I start off the presentation and go through the document, and they're going to have this document and will have already seen it by the weekend. And then we can go through some of the conclusions or the solutions and let them ask questions. And hopefully, you know, everyone will be on the call too to help answer questions or give their opinion. I just don't want it to be my opinion or if they kind of go off the rails on a question that maybe hasn't been, we haven't looked at, or it's a clarification around something. I just don't want it to be me. I want you guys to also, you know, who did the work, who, you know, attended all the meetings and everything. I want you guys to be able to contribute as well. I just don't want them to think it's Bob Polito versus, you know, I want it to be Peter and Bob R. and Lauren and everybody who, you know, who would like to contribute that evening. So just don't think it's the Bob P. show. That's all.
No, I think I made that suggestion just because I think it's easier to have one person make the presentation rather than tag teaming it. And then our job, when questions come up, is to support you and fill in the blanks.
I agree with you.
Lauren, are you still on? I don't see your picture anymore. Just wanted to ask her, is she there? Yeah, she's okay.
Here.
No, Lauren, I just wanted to know, other than the town manager in the list of considerations, anything else there that you thought was problematic as far as the suggestion goes?
I mean, I think putting the softening language definitely improves it a lot for me.
Yeah, it's much better.
I had previously, you know, before that had been softened, I had also had some questions about, you know, what is this role in the town government that does communication? So, you know, I had read it as, you know, we were basically hiring 2 new people. But now, I mean, if it's softened, you know, and it's not implying that, you know, that's our position necessarily. I think, you know, I'm more comfortable with that. I've just frankly been taken aback by being called disingenuous. So,
okay. All right. Now, I think you guys had a fair point because we didn't get a chance, as I said before, we have not had a chance to debate any of these. And I thought that was important that we talk about them and beat them up so that we make them better.
If only there was such vigorous debate at town meetings.
If only. I somehow
It's a good thing.
No one shows up.
It's a good thing.
You know, having come in late in the process, everyone, I know I've been part of the conversation on many of these points, And I think they do represent sort of the collective efforts of, especially what you guys did in the very beginning too, which I didn't see. So I don't have a big problem with, I kind of like what I'm seeing so far. I would love a day or two to digest
Yeah, I
it.
think that'd be great.
You know, I think, we've made a number of changes here just to think it all over. We owe it to the people to kind of give it our best shot here. Sorry to be a little uppity about the town manager issue, but I like the fact the way we're considering it now. I'm all about that. I disagree with it, but that's fine. I mean, that's part of the process here. I like, the fact that we're also considering as an alternative to that, the 4-year term. I like the communications. I like all the points here. I think there's a lot of, I think this is a good seed for ultimate improvements in our town government, along the road.
Yeah.
I mean, that's ultimately what our charge is. And I think we're not presenting the solutions, we're presenting the seeds for change, for improvement and enhancement. We learn as we get older, so.
Bob, one of the things that we had, it was there for a short while. I'm not sure what happened to it. One of the ideas for addressing continuity was, I don't know, somehow mandating or establishing, ensuring some kind of mid to long-term development plan for the town. And as you were talking, it made me think about along the lines of like a balanced budget amendment. You have to have a balanced budget. Well, you have to have a 4-year plan that just can't be changed every time new people get elected. There's got to be some kind of broader consideration, because then that kind of plan outlives a 2-year term. You can always change it, but it can't be changed easily. I think that kind of spun around into a town manager then would be responsible for that kind of plan. But that's something it's one of the ideas I think that kind of fell to the side, but it's still, something that's more process driven than people driven.
Yeah,
All right, get a 5-year plan and then work the plan, and every 3 years redesign it.
Yeah. Hey, Bob, go to the town's website. There is something called the CIP that's been around for a long time, and it takes a stab at annually trying to allocate dollars over time to capital projects.
Yeah, but that ends up being an annual plan.
It is revised annually, as I understand it. Lauren might know better, but it is supposed to be a 10-year look, I think.
It's a 5-year planning tool that is revised annually to make changes that have come about, to reallocate funding if it's needed within the next 5-year timeframe. But the projects themselves are funded. The funding is put in place for a 5-year period.
So maybe that it exists already. We're not aware of that. Maybe others aren't, but okay, thank you. I'm looking at it now.
Bob, I don't think it's exactly what you're talking about, though. I think it's kind of close, but it's not exactly what you're referring to. It's very interesting what you're talking about, though. I'd like to, if we had time, I would love to have talked about that particular point more.
Well, I
think it's sort of like talking strategic planning versus tactical implementation.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think we get mired in the day-to-day of operations, but we have to have a long-range goals and objectives, which I guess would be part of a sort of hate to keep using the word referendum, but it's like up to the people to decide the long-range goals of the town.
Yeah, and that's what I'm thinking. Maybe that's just what ends up in the committee, or it's probably a totally different approach to how do you make sure Madison's going in the right direction for what everyone wants. Because I looked at the strategic plan that exists, and it's kind of impossible to follow.
What's interesting too, if you just search for plan within the charter, the only, aside from planning and things like this, but for plans like we're talking about, the 5-year capital plan and the 10-year long-range financial plan are the only things that are mentioned, and their power powers or the requirements, responsibilities of the Board of Selectmen. But it doesn't discuss strategic planning outside of the finances. And if I recall correctly, you know, whether it was Branford or maybe Fairfield, but I could have sworn that other towns have such requirements for more strategic planning as opposed to just financial planning.
That's
Yeah,
what
it's
I'm
like
thinking.
long-range goals and objectives. You know,
Yeah.
we want to have the best
Yeah.
education system in the state. Well, you're not going to do it in a year. You
Right.
know, if that's our, and we're going to make a commitment to that, it's going to take resources and long-term planning and enhancements and changes and things like that. But so we could scrub the whole thing, everything we've done so far, and go that direction too.
Could be the best thing we do. Because all we need is a real strategic, because I look at the strategic plan that's been drafted and it's so, there's no focus to it. It touches on everything. I couldn't tell you what the goals are. I think there are, how many goals? A, B, J, K, L, M. The goals.
How old is that, Bob? Is there a date on it?
Yeah, 2019 is draft.
Oh, wow.
I'm
So
just
it's
pulling
kind
it
of-
up
so it's
now.
relatively new. Okay.
You know, it's in there.
Yeah.
2019 to 2029.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's just not something that can be acted upon. It's too much.
That could be another committee in and of itself.
That's the one I volunteered for first, and then I got pulled into this one somehow. Don't know what I was saying. As much as I enjoy talking to you each week, I just wanted to make a better strategic plan.
I think you're well suited
more like
here.
a guidance. And looking at this real quick, Bob R., you know, I'm scrolling down through this, and it seems that it's, you know, sort of like general guidelines as opposed to
Yeah, it's not.
an operational objectives.
Yeah.
You know, we want to achieve benchmarks
Yeah.
by this point. It's not really a plan. It's just sort of goals, if you will. We want a cleaner environment. Well, great. How are you going to do that?
It's a lot of it is
How are you
motherhood.
going to measure it? You know?
Yeah, you can't argue with any of it. But even like what you just said, if the goal is to have the best educational system in the state, that's good. Or if the goal is to attract a younger family-focused population, that's good too. But if you can do that, you can't let go of small elementary schools. You're going to need them in 10 years. So it's a lot of stuff gets woven. But anyway, we digress.
Yeah. It was a fun digression.
I know. I enjoy it.
Okay, so where are we on the document? Did we edit everything we needed to from Leo's note from last night, and any other objections that were brought up recently?
So we've done some on the fly editing, and I think what we generally think is the best approach is to give everybody a couple days to take some time to read it, to think about it, make any final edits or send comments to everybody via email, whatever is easiest for each individual. And then with that, we could be potentially close to being done, I think, addressing the concerns that have been raised, and I think would be there. But, you know, I think that people need some time just to read these changes and to make certain that they feel comfortable with it.
Okay, so let's go for noon on the 19th as the drop dead date. And Leo, if you don't mind, can you resend that that link to everyone one more time?
Yep.
That you're in, please. And it will. I don't think, Lauren R., I don't think we can reconvene a conference call or a Zoom meeting in 2 days legally, right? Under,
No, you can.
oh, you can? Okay.
Yeah, it's a special
So-
meeting. And I need at least 24 hours notice to get on the website.
Okay, so do you want to do, does everyone want to do a Zoom at noon on the 19th? So Lauren can have this for the morning of the 20th? I know we're cutting it short with Lauren. I hate to do that to her.
Let me just make sure I don't have another meeting at that time.
Or any other time. It doesn't have to be noon. I'm open for 9 a.m. or 3 p.m. or whatever suits the group.
Oh, that's about all I've got. is to-
I could do noon.
Okay, so for Lauren N and Peter, Bob R, Leo, are you guys, and Bob H, are you guys good for noon on the 19th?
Yes.
Yeah, I can make it work.
Good.
It's gonna be, I'll try. I've got a lot of stuff going on with work right now, so if I
Okay,
get an opening,
okay, so
I'll
if work involves, if work gets in the way, if you don't mind having your comments sent out to everyone or editing in the document,
Yep, that's fair.
but if you can't make it, that's okay, but we can't have, well, I didn't agree to that, or I objected to that. We all have to be on the same page. We all don't have to agree, but you have to have been able to say, okay, I read it and I took care of what I needed to take care of. If that's not too much to ask.
Are
go
people
ahead.
still going to be making changes in the document? I just want to know, like, is what is being read, is that what we're basically voting on, or you know what I mean? Like, if someone makes a change to it on Wednesday morning, I just want to know what's being considered the
It
fine.
should come to you.
You can, Lauren, in the Google Docs, at the very top, you can open the version history. It'll say, right now it says last edit was 4 minutes ago. You click on that, it'll give you options to pick different versions of the document when they were last edited. Or at least when the last editing session started and who did it.
Okay.
So this is a pretty good system as far as everything's there. I don't know why I did 11:08 today, but I did something. So it's all there.
Opened it up.
It's not as easy as doing track changes, which I found in this document. Track changes is a little cumbersome. They come across as suggestions, but you can also do that. It's just the icon on the far right, editing mode. You put track changes in, or suggesting.
I like that. I like that too.
You do suggesting, anything you type goes in as a change, is highlighted, and then someone has to hit the check button before it's included. Makes it easy
Right.
to track differences. So
That's really good. That's really a good system. And then
And
at the end of the document, or at the end of the time we meet, the last time we meet, we can just hit it. If we all agree, we can hit accept all.
yeah.
And go from.
And Bob H. and Lauren, if you guys have questions when you're going through the recommendations, I can't really, all the other stuff up top, I get a little lost in it. But if you have questions regarding any of the considerations, trying to understand where it came from, what it's connected to, I'm happy to jump on a call.
Thank you for that. I think I'm pretty good right now.
Okay.
And I'll go, just scrub it one more time.
Yeah.
But I'm happy with, the way we addressed, at least my concerns there. So.
Okay.
So Lauren just sent out a Zoom meeting request on, come on, August 17th. August 17th. Or you guys want to do it at noon, or you want to do it at, oh, I can't do it at 6. I've got a board meeting.
It should have come through as the 19th at noon. I don't know why.
It's got extra 3 dates there, Lauren.
17, 19, and 31.
Yeah. 19th.
Oh, gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, I see it. I'm sorry. I see the 19th. I was looking at the top one where it said the 17th. Great. So we'll reconvene on the 19th, put this thing to bed, put your edits in as Bob R noted, where there are suggestions, and then we can see who did what and either talk about it or hit the agree button or whatever and go from there. Okay, good. I really appreciate. Is there anything else that we need to chat about?
One thing I just want to be clear on is with the appendix. So how are we collecting this information, or do we need it all? Do we want it all? Because, I know, Bob, you had mentioned that Lauren R. might be helping, but I just want to make certain we know who's doing what, just so we get it. I mean, part of me thinks we should have all of that together as we review even these edits, because I think it adds additional context. But if everyone, understands what will be in there, then that's fine. But I just don't want to lose sight, because some of these things are not the easiest to format and then get incorporated into a Word document or a PDF. It just takes time.
I think I had everything in one shape, one form or shape or the other. I had from all of our emails that have gone back and forth for these few months that we've been talking since May. And then I've got the public relations stuff, the stuff that was in the source. I have that I can send to Lauren as well. But Lauren, tell me if I'm wrong. You have, I think, a good chunk, if not all of the stuff in the appendix. Okay.
So I started a drive today of all the appendix documents, and there's like one or two things I think I'm missing, and I meant to email it out to you guys before I left the office today, but I'll do it first thing tomorrow. And that way, just take a look. Let me know if it's, anything else that you think needs to be in there.
Okay. Great.
Yeah,
I appreciate
very
that.
helpful.
Yeah, that is really helpful. Thank you. About, without access to an office, this gets difficult. All the things that, for the copier and every copy machine and all the great things that you could do on a copy machine. So yeah, Leo, that was a good idea. Thank you for that. What else? I think that's it. Anything else to come before our committee this evening? If not, I'll see you guys on Wednesday, the 19th at noon. Good.
Yeah.
Okay. All in favor of, what's the word? Of
Having dinner.
having dinner? That'd be great. All in favor? Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed?
Motion to adjourn.
Great. I appreciate everyone's help. Thank you very much. Lauren R., thanks for getting on. Really appreciate it. All the extra help at the same time. I really has come in handy. So have a great night, everyone. See you on Wednesday. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
See you, everybody.
See you Wednesday.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.